Good afternoon. My name is Deborah Drennan, better known as Susu, and I'm a lifelong member of St. Anthony of Padua Catholic Church. St. Anthony of Padua, Greenville, celebrates Black history every day of the year. Today, February 27th, 2022, we will celebrate Black History Month by honoring female civil rights activists from the music industry. Black History Month provides a special time to celebrate and learn more about our African American sisters and brothers, their contributions to American history, and how they paved the way for all of us. Each female artist, activist is introduced, pay special attention to the struggles and the trials they endured as they followed their call to bring music and voice to the masses, all while simultaneously fighting the good fight for equality and justice for all. We will briefly explore their beginnings and share their writings through songs. Some lyrics are storytelling and express the pain and oppression of the times. Others are spiritual and uplifting as they remind us to look to God. Sadly, many of those experiences are still relevant today, 6 decades later. Welcome. Guiding us through this journey is Aretha Allen. Ladies and gentlemen, Aretha Allen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon again. We begin our program with Mahalia Jackson. A 20th century recording artist, Mahalia Jackson, known as the Queen of Gospel, is revered as one of the greatest musical figures in the United States history. Born October 26, 1911, in New Orleans, Louisiana, to Charity Clark and Johnny Jackson, Mahalia became one of gospel music's all-time greats, known for her rich, powerful voice that cultivated a global following. Mahalia grew up in a pitched street shack and started singing at 4 years old in Mount Moriah Baptist Church. Brought up in a devout Christian family, Mahalia still found herself influenced by the secular sounds of blues artists like Bessie Smith and Ma Rainey. After moving to Chicago as a teen with the aim of studying nursing, Mahalia joined the Greater Salem Baptist Church and soon became a member of the Johnson Gospel Singers. Later, she started working with Thomas Dorsey, a gospel composer. The two performed around the U.S., further cultivating an audience for Mahalia. In 1956, Miss Jackson made her debut on The Ed Sullivan Show, and in 1958, appeared at the Newport Jazz Festival in Rhode Island, performing with Duke Ellington and his band. Ms. Jackson was also an active supporter of the Civil Rights Movement. August 1956, the Democratic National Convention. Ms. Jackson had been stopping for preferred candidates for more than 2 decades, but she made her presence felt on a national scale at the August 1956 Democratic Convention in Chicago. Undaunted by the boisterous crowd, she quieted the delegates with her slow build-up rendition of I See God, before winning over remaining skeptics with a voice that powered through the International Amphitheater. Her label owner and collaborator, Mitch Miller, recalled, quote, "There wasn't a sound. You didn't dare breathe. It was such a tremendous moment. There wasn't a dry eye in the house when she got through," end quote. December 1956, Montgomery Bus Boycott. As the foot soldiers of the Montgomery Bus Boycott strained to reach the finish line, their movement got a much-needed jolt of star power with Ms. Jackson's performance at St. John AME Church on December 6, 1956. It was the first public appearing of the Gospel Queen and an ascendant Baptist minister named Martin Luther King Jr. While the boycott went down as a success with the city's capitulation 2 weeks later, the bombing of fellow minister Ralph Abernathy's home in Montgomery, where Ms. Jackson had stayed, demonstrated the immense risks undertaken by everyone involved. January 1961, John F. Kennedy's inaugural gala. Cementing her status as an A-list celebrity, Ms. Jackson was invited to join Laurence Olivier, Gene Kelly, Leonard Bernstein, and other luminaries at the Frank Sinatra-directed JFK inaugural gala on January 19, 1961. Ms. Jackson, who had campaigned for John F. Kennedy, said, quote, "He lifts my spirits and makes me feel like a part of the land I live in," end quote. The inauguration event is remembered for numerous reasons, including the blizzard that knocked out the television coverage, but Jackson nevertheless found a way to stand out with her singing of the Star-Spangled Banner. August 1963, March on Washington. Long before his most famous August 28, 1963 speech in front of the Lincoln Memorial, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream. He talked about the dream the previous April at a 16th Street Baptist church meeting in Birmingham, Alabama, of seeing, quote, Negro boys and girls walking together to school with little white boys and girls, playing in the parks together and going swimming together, end quote. So for his biggest audience at the March on Washington, he didn't think it was worth dwelling on the dream on that hot summer's day in the nation's capital. In fact, the dream wasn't mentioned in the notes that laid on top of the podium, and it wasn't in the plans for that day. One of the defining moments of the civil rights era drew an estimated 250,000 people to the Lincoln Memorial to hear heavy-hitting activists like A. Philip Randolph and John Lewis call for change. Ms. Jackson was the final musical guest and performed "I've Been Buked and I've Been Scorned" and "How I Got Over." Midway through Dr. King's speech, Ms. Jackson stepped into the picture and changed the entire course of one of the most famous speeches in American history, nudging Dr. King toward history by urging him to, quote, "Tell him about the dream, Martin." April 1968, Martin Luther King Jr.'s funeral. Ms. Jackson's final presentation for Dr. King came at a public service for the great orator. After the funeral procession reached Atlanta's Morehouse College, the shaken singer honored her old friend's last request with an emotional performance of the standard "Take My Hand, Precious Lord." It is noted that Ms. Jackson, quote, sang out her sorrow, sang a plea for forgiveness of mankind, sang for the soul she knew was sitting at Jesus' side. "Save me a place, Martin, save me a place," end quote. After Jackson's death in 1968, after King's death, in 1968, Ms. Jackson largely withdrew from public political activities. She did concentrate on building the Mahalia Jackson Foundation. In her later years, Jackson had several hospitalizations for severe health problems, giving her final concert in 1971 in Munich, Germany. She died of a heart attack on January 27, 1972. Jackson is remembered and loved for her impassioned delivery, her deep commitment to spirituality, and her lasting inspiration to listeners of all faiths. Mahalia Jackson received 3 Grammy Awards and was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1997. Ladies and gentlemen, performing the song by Mahalia Jackson, "How I Got Over," Mrs. Gwen Hall.
How I got over, died on Calvary. I want to thank him for how he brought me. I want to thank him for how he taught me. I want to thank him for how he kept me. Want to thank him 'cause he never left me. And I'm gonna sing thank you for blessing me. And I'm gonna thank him for old time religion. I'm gonna thank him for giving me a vision. I'm gonna join the heavenly choir. I'm gonna shout and never get tired. I'm gonna sing somewhere around the altar. I'm gonna shout hallelujah. I wanna thank you, Jesus, for blessing me. Ooh, how I got over. How I got over. Oh. So look back and wonder how I got over. How I got over. How I got over. So look back and wonder how I got over.
An American jazz and swing music singer was born Ella Fagan on April 7, 1915. Though some sources say the name on her birth certificate was Eleanor Harris, her parents, Sadie Fagan and Clarence Holliday, were teenagers at the time of Eleanor's birth. Clarence Holliday would leave the family early on to pursue his musical career as a guitar player. Sadie would later move to New York City with her daughter in tow in search of a better job, but the 1929 Depression soon left her out of work. This was the beginning of a tumultuous childhood for Eleanor. She started skipping school and was eventually sent to a facility for troubled youth. At only 13 years old, Eleanor dropped out of school and began cleaning at a brothel where her mother worked as a prostitute. It was here that she would listen to and sing along with the tunes she heard through the bedroom windows of the musical nonconformists like Bessie Smith and Louis Armstrong. As an adult, Eleanor adopted the name Billy from the silent movie star Billy Dove, whom Eleanor adored. Oddly enough, Dove was the stage name of Lillian Boney. Later, Billy would soon befriend and perform with saxophonist Lester Young, who would nickname her Lady Day. In March 1939, a 23-year-old Billie Holiday walked up to the mic at the West 4th Street Cafe Society in New York City to sing her final song of the night. Per her request, the waiters stopped serving and the room went completely black, save for a spotlight on her face. And then she sang softly in her raw and emotional voice. Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. When Holiday finished, the spotlight turned off. When the lights came back on, the stage was empty. She was gone, and per her request, there was no encore. This was how Holiday performed Strange Fruit, which she would unwaveringly sing for the next 20 years until her ultimate death, untimely death, at age 44. Strange Fruit was originally a poem written by Abel Maripal, a Jewish communist educator and civil rights activist from the Bronx. He later composed it into a song for which the musical arrangement was made for Billie Holiday. Mira Paul's inspiration, you might ask? A photo of the lynching of 2 black men in Indiana. The visceral image haunted him for days and prompted him to put pen to paper. After composing it into a song, Mira Paul passed it on to a nightclub owner who introduced it to Holiday. When Holiday heard the lyrics, she was deeply moved, not only because she was a Black American, but also because the song reminded her of her father, who died at age 39 from a fatal lung disorder after being turned away from a hospital because he was a Black man. Holiday didn't enjoy performing Strange Fruit, but knew she had to. She is quoted saying, "But I have to keep singing it, not only because people ask for it, but because 20 years after Pop died, the things that killed him are still happening in the South," end quote. However, the protest anthem became Holiday's downfall. While civil rights activists and Black America embraced Strange Fruit, the nightclub scene, which is primarily composed of white patrons, had mixed reactions. At witnessing Holiday's performance, audience members would applaud until their hands hurt, while those less sympathetic would bitterly walk out the door. Billie Holiday had a career that spanned over 26 years. Her uncanny syncopations and her unique and unmatched style of phrasing and her dramatic intensity made her the outstanding jazz singer of her day. White gardenias worn in her hair were her trademark. One individual who was determined to silence Holiday was Federal Bureau of Narcotics Commissioner Harry Anslinger. A known racist, Anslinger believed that drugs caused Black people to overstep their boundaries in American society, and that Black jazz singers who smoked marijuana created the devil's music. Anslinger forbade Holiday to perform Strange Fruit. She refused, so he devised a plan to destroy her. Knowing that Holiday was a drug user, he had some of his men frame her by selling her heroin. When she was caught using the drug, she was thrown into prison for the next year and a half. Upon Holiday's release in 1948, federal authorities refused to reissue her cabaret performer's license. Her nightclub days, which she loved so much, were over. Still determined to soldier on, she performed to sold-out concerts at Carnegie Hall, but still, the demons of her difficult childhood haunted her, and she began using heroin again. In 1959, Holiday checked herself into a New York City hospital, suffering from heart and lung problems and cirrhosis of the liver due to decades of drug and alcohol abuse. The singer was an emaciated version of herself. Her once heartfelt voice now withered and raspy. Still bent on ruining the singer, Anslinger had his men go to the hospital and handcuff her to her bed. Although Holiday had been showing gradual signs of recovery, Anslinger's men prohibited doctors from treating her further. She died within days. In 2003, the Library of Congress inducted the song Strange Fruit into the National Recording Registry. Despite her tragic demise, Holiday has a legacy in the world of jazz and pop music. She garnered 23 Grammys posthumously and was recently inducted into the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Jessica Williams playing the role of Billie Holiday and performing the song Strange Fruit.
Southern trees bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees, pastoral scenes of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouths, scent of magnolias, sweet and fresh, then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rise, for the trees to dry. Here is a strange and bitter cry.
Ms. Lena Horne. In the beginning, the roles for Black performers in Hollywood movies were deliberately kept marginal to the plots so that their appearances could easily be edited out for screenings in the American South. Black singers and musicians were barred from taking rooms in the same hotels in which they were performing. Partners in an interracial marriage might decide to leave the U.S. and move to more welcoming locations, such as Paris, to avoid hate mail and threats. All this and more happened to the singer and actor Lena Horne. Horne not only rose above it all, but also significantly contributed to changing the situation. The velvet-voiced, multi-talented Horne first negotiated and then resisted the worst that racist entertainment industry could throw at her. She rose to its summit as an original creative artist and a free woman whose style, beauty, eloquence, and independence made her a role model for millions. Horne shared stages with Count Basie, Tony Bennett, Billy Eckstine, Judy Garland, Bing Crosby, Frank Sinatra, and many other legends of American music during her long and varied career. She also made numerous recordings, her most notable being Stormy Weather, which became her signature song. She became one of the first African Americans to cross the music business color divide and tour with an all-white band singing for the successful Charlie Barnet Swing Orchestra in 1940, and sometimes sleeping in the band bus when hotels would not let her enter with her colleagues. Horne became a favorite pinup among Black servicemen, but would nonetheless refuse to perform on wartime tours in which Black GIs were treated less than German POWs. One story goes, during one of her USO tours, seeing that Black troops were forced to sit in the back section of seats behind the German POWs, Ms. Horne, not concerned with her personal harm, stepped off the stage and walked down the aisle past the German POWs and stopped at the first row of Black American soldiers and performed with the Germans behind her. In 1941, Horn followed Billie Holiday into Greenwich Village at the West 4th Street Cafe Society, New York's first integrated venue, and worked with singer Paul Robeson. Horn became a close friend of Robeson, who was pursued for his alleged communist sympathies by the McCarthy witch hunts of the 1950s. This affected Horn as well and prevented her from appearing on film and television over a 7-year period, just as she was at the peak of her creativity. She continued to work at nightclubs, though not her favorite venue, and became a matchless performer in these more flexible and intimate circumstances. In 1947, she married the white pianist and arranger Lenny Hayden, but racial politics pushed the couple to move to Paris for a while, and they avoided publicly announcing the marriage for 3 years. When they did, Horn was exposed to threats from both white and black people. Horn responded, quote, "When I look at Daddy Hayden, I don't think he's white. I think he's a man who's been kind to me," end quote. This, a second marriage, initially of convenience, would deepen significantly over its 24-year course. Horn took part in the Civil Rights March on Washington in 1963 and had traveled to Mississippi to speak alongside Medgar Evers the weekend before Evers was assassinated. Horn said, quote, "Nobody, black or white, who really believes in democracy can stand aside now. Everybody's got to stand up and be counted," end quote. She began to appear regularly at rallies organized by the National Council for Negro Women. The next decade was overshadowed by tragedy. Between 1970 and 1971, Horn's father died, her husband died of a heart attack, and her son, Teddy, died of a kidney ailment. Horn worked little until her appearance as Glinda, the Good Witch, in The Wiz of 1978. The all-black version of The Wizard of Oz. The film was directed by Horn's son-in-law, Sidney Lumet, and starred Diana Ross and Michael Jackson. By the end of the 1980s, Horn was curtailing her public appearances. She had received an honorary doctorate from Howard University, and her unmatched talents had earned her a Tony and 3 Grammy Awards. Horn made her final concert appearance at New York's Carnegie Hall. After years of swallowing her anger and riding with the punches, Horn was able to ascend to a vantage point in her life where she could finally say, quote, "My identity is very clear to me now. I am a black woman. I'm not alone. I'm free. I no longer have to be a credit. I don't have to be a symbol to anybody. I don't have to be a first to anybody. I don't have to be an imitation of a white woman that Hollywood sort of hoped I'd become. I'm me, and I'm like nobody else," end quote. Lena Mary Calhoun Horn, singer and actor, born June 30th, 1917, died May 9th, 2010 of heart failure. Ladies and gentlemen, singing Stormy Weather, Ms. Jareen Percival as Lena Horn. was one of the most extraordinary artists of the 20th, an icon of American music. She was the consummate musical storyteller who used her remarkable talent to create a legacy of liberation, empowerment, passion, and love through a magnificent body of works. She was a doctor and held 2 PhDs. One was a doctor of music from Amherst College in Massachusetts, and the other was a doctorate of humanities from the Malcolm X University in Chicago. Born Eunice Kathleen Wayman in Tryon, North Carolina, on February 21st, 1933. Eunice's remarkable talent as a musician was evident early on when she started playing piano by ear at age 3. Her mother, a Methodist minister, and her father, a handyman and preacher himself, couldn't ignore young Eunice's God-given gift for music. Raised in the church on the straight and narrow, her parents taught her right from wrong, to carry herself with dignity, and to work hard. She played piano but didn't sing in her mother's church. Able to play virtually anything by ear, she was soon studying classical music with an Englishwoman named Muriel Masanovich, who had moved to the small southern town. It was from these humble roots that Eunice developed a lifelong love of Bach, Chopin, Brahms, Beethoven, and Schubert. Ma Maz taught her, quote, "You do not touch that piano until you are composed and you are poised and your audience is ready. If they're not, wait until they are," end quote. After graduating valedictorian of her high school class, the community raised money for a scholarship for Eunice to study at Juilliard in New York City before applying to the prestigious Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia. To the end, Eunice herself would claim that racism was the reason she did not get in. To survive, she began teaching music to local students. One fateful day in 1954, looking to supplement her income, Eunice auditioned to play piano at the Midtown Bar and Grill in Atlantic City, New Jersey. The owner would hire her, but she would also have to sing. Despite her dreams and plans to become the first Black female classical pianist, she needed to keep the job, and so she did what was necessary. She sang. The rest is now history. Eunice adopted a stage name, Nina Simone, to ensure her Methodist minister mother wouldn't find out she was playing at an Atlantic City bar, nor the parents of the students she accompanied musically at a recording studio, where she was paid $90 a week, 50 of which she sent to her mother. Nina, or Nina, is Spanish for little girl or little one, which was a pet name given to her by a boyfriend. Simone came from her favorite French actress, Simone Signoret. Nina's rich, deep velvet vocal tones, combined with her mastery of the keyboard, soon attracted clubgoers up and down the East Coast. Months after the release of her self-named album in 1959, Nina was performing at her first major New York City venue, the Mid-Manhattan Town Hall. It featured her distinctive versions of jazz and cabaret standards, including I Loves You Porgy, which became a hit. In the 1960s, Nina added protest songs after befriending Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. She performed at civil rights demonstrations, and her 1964 song, Mississippi Goddam, exemplifies this period. Quote, "Nightclubs were dirty, making records was dirty, popular music was dirty, and to mix all that with politics seemed senseless and demeaning. And until songs like Mississippi Goddam just burst out of me, I had musical problems as well," end quote. Nina once asked, "How can you take the memory of a man like civil rights activist Medgar Evers and reduce all that he was to 3.5 minutes in a simple tune. That was the musical side of it that I shied away from. I didn't like protest music because a lot of it was so simple and unimaginative. It stripped the dignity away from the people it was trying to celebrate. But the Alabama church bombing of the 4 little girls and the murder of Medgar Evers stopped that argument. And with Mississippi Goddamn, I realized there was no turning back. Nina was deeply affected by these 2 events and upped the ante in 1969, recording a song she wrote herself, To Be Young, Gifted, and Black, named after an unfinished play by her friend Lorraine Hansberry, who was the first Black playwright and author of the Broadway hit A Raisin in the Sun. Nina and Hansberry spoke often about the civil rights movement. While moved by her conversations with Hansberry, it took the killing of Medgar Evers and the 4 girls in Birmingham to act as catalysts for a transformation of Nina's career. The lyrics couldn't be any less ambiguous or any more positive, as they state, "In the whole world, you know, there's a million boys and girls who are young, gifted, and Black, and that's a fact." In the early 1970s, Nina began her world travels, never to return to America, as she was frustrated and disgusted by its racism ingrained in the fabric. Like her private life, her career was somewhat turbulent. She gained a reputation for throwing on-stage tantrums, insulting inattentive audiences, and abruptly canceling concerts. As was stated in the beginning, she commanded perfection from herself and demanded no less from her audience. It is that approach to every piece of work that became Nina's uncompromising musical trademark. When asked about her style of singing, she said, quote, "I find it easier to sing songs that you feel. The others you have to teach yourself to sing," end quote. Nina Simone was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum in 2018. Nina Simone died April 21, 2003, at her home in France. She had said of her protest songs that she wanted to move the audience and let them know what they've done to my people, Black and brown, around the world. My songs come from knowledge, not anger. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Marilyn Siaga Avery performing To Be Young, Gifted, and Black by Nina Simone. Aretha Louise Franklin was born March 25, 1942, in Memphis, Tennessee. She was the fourth child of Barbara Franklin, a gospel singer and pianist, and Reverend Clarence Franklin, a well-known pastor of the New Bethel Baptist Church in Detroit, Michigan. Barbara and Reverend Clarence Franklin separated when Aretha was 6 years old, and Barbara died when Aretha was just 10 years old. After the death of her mother, Aretha began singing in the church with her father. She would also perform at his gospel revivals in major cities throughout the United States. While touring with her father, she met many gospel greats like Mahalia Jackson, Sam Cooke, and Clara Ward. Aretha released her first album at age 14 titled The Gospel Sound of Aretha Franklin. At 18 years old, she crossed over to secular music with her father's blessings. She then moved to New York and signed a contract with Columbia Records under the musical direction of John Hammond. Hammond had moved her musically towards the blues and jazz genre, where Aretha struggled. She would later sign with Atlantic Records. There, Aretha was able to flourish by tapping into her gospel roots, which brought her success. Soon, she dominated the charts with hit after hit, resulting in Aretha being dubbed the Queen of Soul. Partly due to her success and soulful sound, Aretha became a symbol of Black empowerment during the Civil Rights Movement. Her father, a civil rights activist himself and close friend of Dr. Martin Luther King, was active in politics at the time. Reverend Franklin organized the 1963 Detroit Walk to Freedom, which had been the largest civil rights demonstration thanks to Aretha's fame and popularity until the March on Washington later that year. While Dr. King was on the front lines, celebrities like Aretha, Mahalia Jackson, Sidney Poitier, Harry Belafonte, and others were in the background writing checks and raising money. Aretha's investment in her community and her dedication to social justice embodied her commitment to African Americans and her spirituality. Her voice rang out at political milestones like the Democratic Party Convention of 1968 in Chicago after the assassinations of Dr. King and Robert Kennedy, and again at the inauguration of our first African-American president, Barack Obama, in 2009. One of the songs was Precious Lord, Dr. King's favorite and most requested song, which she performed at his funeral. Another noteworthy song, A Change Is Gonna Come, originally written and performed by Sam Cooke, was performed by Aretha in honor of all Black Americans who have suffered an injustice because of the color of their skin.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know my change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been a long time coming, but I know my change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it will.
Aretha Franklin's career spans over 6 decades. She achieved numerous accolades and awards in her lifetime, including 20 Grammys. Aretha was the first woman to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the youngest recipient of the Kennedy Center Honor at age 52. She released 131 singles, 42 studio albums, and 6 live albums. The Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, died August 16, 2018, of pancreatic cancer. Her legacy is a reminder to us all to continue to fight for freedom and equality. Ladies and gentlemen, Shayla Goldsmith as Aretha Franklin performing Respect.
Respect.
Ladies and gentlemen, this ends our program for tonight, but let's allow our performers to take one more bow as Aretha Franklin, Shayla Goldsmith. As Nina Simone, Marilyn Siaga Avery. As Lena Horn, Doreen Percival. As Lena Horn, Jareen Percival. As Billie Holiday, Jessica Williams. And as Mahalia Jackson, Gwen Hall. We'd also like to Larry McCullough and his band. To Chuck Miltier, our videographer. And the program coordinator and planner, Sandra Brock, hiding behind the column. Is Father Mwape here? Oh, okay. Now I'd like to ask Father Mwape to come up and give us, and after Father Mwape, please join us for a soul food dinner in the social hall. Thank you.
Talk about resurrection of Mahalia Jackson, Billie Holiday, Lena Horne, Nina Simone, Aretha Franklin. Congratulations. Thank you so much. The Spirit always lives. Even though we die physically, the Spirit always is there. When I came to the U.S. in 2000, I found that there's Black History Month. I had 3 questions. What is Black History Month? And then why? Then how is it observed? And then I was reading a little bit about it, but something captured my mind, and that's the way I summarized Black History Month through this saying. The sayings, you are going to hear them. I think you have heard them from a very powerful person. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive hate. Only love can do that. That time is always right to do what is right. That's the summary of the Black History Month for me, and I hope for all of us. In Africa, most of the things, most of the rituals that we have, the language in which it is communicated is songs. So as we are growing up, we are initiated to understand the language of songs. When I was ordained, 2 days later after my ordination, my mother prepared some people to come and sing, and then somebody was helping me to understand what was in the song. And that's the way Africans mostly communicate, especially among women. If they want to talk about you, you can be there and they will talk about you in songs. So songs are very powerful, and that's what we have heard this evening. And songs communicate so much of what we may not know of what happened. Truly, Black History Month, it reminds us there was darkness in the life of so many people like the musicians, and yet we cannot carry out darkness, we carry light. There was so much hatred, and yet we cannot carry hate, but love. There was so many wrong things done, but it's time to do what is right. And I think that's the way Black history should be. We cannot forget about history, but we cannot be held by the past. Let's move on with light, love, and doing what is right. Thank you so much for coming, for all the people who prepared this wonderful time. I thank you all, and God bless you.